Thanks for sitting down with us. I'll just start with the first question. Obviously, I'm not a brain surgeon. What does a brain surgeon do?
Neurosurgery is the discipline of surgery that involves the medical and surgical treatment of diseases of the skull, brain, spine, and spinal cord and nerves, as well as the vascular supply to the brain.
Wow. At what point in your life did you decide you wanted to be a neurosurgeon?
I think it kind of came in fits and starts, to be honest with you. When I went to college on an Air Force pilot scholarship, so I was going to fly. And somewhere along the way early on, it never crossed my mind to go to medical school because I never really knew there was I knew there were doctors, but it never was in my universe of career choices. And then I wound up at a small liberal arts school where a lot of people were pre-med, pre-law, pre-business, and I kind of gravitated to the science of the sciences that were sort of the gateway into healthcare and into medical school. So then I went to medical school. I got a job my first year of college working in a hospital. This woman had come in, terrible headache, just something not right. What do I know? I'm a 19-year-old guy drawing blood. And there was a neurosurgeon named Walter Haynes, who was one of the first neurosurgeons in Birmingham. And he came in, did a spinal tap on her, and turned out she had an aneurysm. Saw her the next day because I went to draw more blood on her in the intensive care unit. She had a little wrapping on her head because she had a craniotomy to have her aneurysm fixed. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. Still didn't know much about it.
It was an evolution of something that looked cool to something I could do.
Yeah, and it actually became a case of when I graduated from medical school, I actually went into an internal medicine residency because I did not want to work this hard. And you'd see the neurosurgery residents, haggard and beat to death and work like dogs. And so I didn't think I wanted to work that hard. Well, after a few months of internal medicine, I knew I didn't want to do that either, and I kept getting in trouble for being in the operating room with the neurosurgery residents. So I wound up just changing programs and going into neurosurgery. And
is that the top students that go into neurosurgery, or is it more?
I think everybody in medical school is sort of the top student. Realistically, you don't get there because you're the bottom student. If you look at every medical school class then and now, there are probably 1,000 applicants for 100 slots, so everybody's pretty good. I think people sort of gravitate to things that are their aptitude and are their work ethic. And the neurosurgeons that I know and that I trained with were not afraid of much. It's a very intimidating specialty, especially early in your career. It's not a big thing if you're not a surgeon. Some people don't like it, some people don't want to do it, some people can't do it. But that's what we were, and so we just happened to be in the place we like doing things. And there is some attraction to it because it's a different kind of specialty. So finishing my residency, the day I walked out, I was 33 years old.
By 33, many people are well into a career.
Yeah.
And that takes a different kind of commitment, right?
Well, it's a couple of different ways to look at it. One of the ways, on some days, it was an extremely protracted adolescence. Another way to look at it, though, is it's an extreme commitment. There are some times when I think back, and my partners would tell you the same thing. They think back on their residency, and they remember going to work one July, and then they remember getting off work another July 7 years later. And the rest of it's sort of a blur. It's just that when you walked out that door, you knew how to do a lot of things you didn't know how to do when you walked in.
How difficult is to treat a young, anywhere from a toddler or a newborn all the way into a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid?
Yeah,
How difficult is
it's not. I think it's a case of it's what you do. It's like asking a pilot how hard it is to land an airplane, or an astronaut how hard it is to fly into space, or a newspaper reporter how hard it is to write a newspaper article. It's just what you do. And so it's a case of you go to work, and sometimes you see things you don't like seeing, but you better not put yourself in a situation where you have an emotional reaction to that, because then you're not helping anybody.
When you walk in at 3 in the morning, a guy's been in a car wreck and has a significant brain injury, he and his family are expecting you to be at the top of your game, right?
Yep.
His life depends on it.
Yep.
In some cases.
Well, and I think that the way you do it you've rehearsed it so many times that for situations like that, it should be so automatic that there is no consideration of the game. You just know what to do. You know, at this stage of my career, my partner's career, you know, if that's more than 30 seconds, then we might ought to rethink what we're doing. Most times, not every time, but most times.
At what point, I mean, I can think if you're about to need a neurosurgeon, you're going to want somebody that's pretty confident about about their skills.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're not going to want a guy because this is, well, maybe. I mean, you don't want maybe, wishy-washy. You want somebody to come in and make a decision, right?
Yeah.
How many decisions do you make on a daily basis? Medical decisions.
You know, you figure, I guess you would say if you see 50, 60 people in the office a day, you're making 50 or 60 decisions, plus whatever has piled up in the hospital that, you know, needs an intervention or a change in direction. So, you know, I don't know.
So you can be making 10,000 decisions a year, easy.
Yeah, and probably some are probably pretty critical. Now you make me nervous. Just because you do something right in this business though doesn't mean everything turns out right or the way you would like it to do. And that's probably the hard part for everybody. I mean, it's probably the hard part for the people on the receiving end and the delivery end. And it's, you know, and there are, anytime we do something and you know, somebody comes in and they're catastrophically injured, there might be 20 or 30 people involved in their care, all with different understandings of what should or did happen. So, you know, you might have the nursing assistant in the emergency room, his only experience with, you know, a gunshot wound to the head being that particular experience, when, you know, I couldn't tell you how many I've seen, and you know when they show up if they're going to live or die. That's a pretty well understood phenomenon as to survival in gunshot wounds. And, you know, so it's like so-and-so shows up shot in the head and basically with a fatal injury, and you know it because that's what they look like. And you know, that 22-year-old having no understanding of why you put a dressing on their head and went back home.
So you last year 23, 24, I'll correct the number, somewhere in that ballpark. And you know, I mean, some of those end up in here, right?
Yeah, if they live to get here and die, yeah.
That's that's gonna be a troubling part of your job, because sometimes those appear to be senseless deaths.
I mean, I think any death like that's a senseless death. There are a handful of compartments you put it in. You know, one is just like, look, your job is to show up and do what you can do, and you hate it if there was a robbery or a domestic dispute or any other variety of homicide. Remember that 2/3 of gunshot wound deaths are suicide, not homicide. Don't ever lose sight of that.
And you see those. Yeah,
we see those too.
If you have to make really important decisions on a daily basis, when you go home, do you still get to make all the important decisions?
Not a one. Yeah, we can talk about my kids or my wife.
Yeah, your family. I mean, your kids are. You got a kid.
Well, I'll tell you, this is the comment I would make is it is this is hardest on my family. You know, it is there have been a variety of just brutal body blows that I don't know how we have survived, you know, in terms of, you know, time away from home and, you know, missing things and you know, just it's hard on your family. Yeah, my wife is a nurse who has, in her words, been retired for about 20 years since our daughter was born, and we have developed an interest in traveling, and we spend a lot of time in Montana and the American West. She's about to get her EMT certification so she can do wilderness search and rescue volunteering when we're out there, and I think that's very cool. You know, because
will you do that with her, Tom?
I might when I get more time. It would be, I think wilderness medicine would be a lot, and it's, and I know a lot of people have been there, but if you haven't been there, you can't know. I mean, Tim Chitwood would know. It's just a different universe than what we live in here.
Yeah.
It's you can't explain it. You just got to go see it. My son graduated from Appalachian State and went to work for a company called Rainier Mountain Institute. So he's an expedition guide, guides mountain climbing trips up Mount Rainier in the summer, and he also has a lot of certifications in wilderness first responder and avalanche survival certifications and things that make his mother very happy.